answer that. Thanks.
I'm sure in this group somewhere is a doctor coming up. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Representative Hess.
Thank you, Chairman. So, is there any correlation with unvaccinated child creating an outbreak? Is there like documented occurrence that an unvaccinated child with a religious exemption has actually caused an outbreak?
I think that's what happened in New York with measles last year. There were groups of children who were unvaccinated due to religious beliefs, and we had a measles epidemic. So yeah, last year in New York would be one example.
Okay, but not Connecticut.
No. I think we got lucky. We had a lot of measles on our doorstep. I think that our public health department did a fantastic job of positioning us to respond, but I also think we got lucky, and that's what I mean when I say we really need to get ahead of the curve. We need to, this is what public health does, is prevention, right? We need to be ready. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when the next epidemic is going to land in Connecticut, and I think we can be ready, and I think we need to be ready, and we can do that by increasing coverage with vaccines. It's going to happen, and we need to be ahead of that curve. We need to be ready.
Thank you. It just seems that viruses, everything changes, everything mutates. I mean, when we put together something to deal with something, well, it says, okay, I'll just switch. I'll just do a little, and it no longer is effective. I mean, that's how we have all these super germs now because of being overly medicated. So the biology of the human being is able to keep up with things, whereas I just don't get it how that the medical field can say, I've got this. This one shot will do it. Will eradicate measles forever. It just
we don't actually say that. We don't say, I got that. We are constantly vigilant. We are constantly evaluating. We are constantly looking for the next thing. I don't think any of us feel like we got it. The vaccines we have today are largely against infections that don't mutate. So, for example, measles. So you can rest assured that if you have the measles vaccine, you'll be protected. That's different pathogens, different viruses mutate. Like, so for example, HIV is a great example of a virus that mutates rapidly, which is why we don't have a vaccine for HIV. But the infections for which we do currently have vaccines are stable enough that our vaccines have been effective in preventing those diseases for decades.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. Are there other questions or comments? Representative Cohen.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And I would just like to say that up here, we are here for you, but I need you folks to be respectful of the process, and sitting behind folks and making faces and saying things is not helpful to the process. We are being respectful of you, and I would like to see you be respectful of the process. Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder.
Any other comments or questions? Doctor, thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Next up is Representative Cocaruda, followed by Senator Maroney, and on the public side, Dr. Carbonari, followed by Emily Edwards.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I want to thank Representative Steinberg and Senator Abrams and all the Public Health Committee. I just want to reiterate what Commissioner Bice said. It's so important that we have this discussion and that we're all able to get as much information as possible. Today, I'd like to, yield my time to Mr. That's
perfect timing for you.
Perfect my time to Mr. Dell, Dell Bigtree. And he's an investigative medical reporter, journalist. He's an Emmy Award-winning producer of the television show The Doctors. And he also founded a not-for-profit that's called Informed Consent Action Network. It's an organization that promotes children's safety. He's also produced a documentary called Vax, and he's host of the alternative health talk show, The High Wire, with Dell Bigtree. So with this, I'd like to introduce Mr. Bigtree. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for taking the time. I'm probably the only journalist in the world that I know that's investigated one word, that is safety, when it comes to vaccines for 4 years. I've read with a team of scientists, doctors, and lawyers every single safety study that's ever been conducted, and I've used that information to win lawsuits against the National Institute of Health, Health and Human Services, the FDA, and we're currently about to settle a case with the CDC. I'm blamed for using misrepresentation of facts, but you should try to win legal cases against the Department of Justice using misleading facts. We have the facts. Today I want to talk about herd immunity, since that is what you're all considering. Do we actually protect that immune-suppressed child if we pass a law like this? The Constitution requires that if you're going to remove something like someone's religious rights, that you do it with the least amount of power necessary and that you achieve the remedy you're looking for. I can prove to you that you will not achieve the remedy you're looking for, because herd immunity refers to community immunity. It's not school immunity. There's nowhere in science that says that vaccinating the school gets you to herd immunity. It's community immunity, meaning everyone in Hartford must be vaccinated and everyone in Connecticut must be vaccinated. And that vaccination rate must be at 95%. It's not 95% of children, it's not 95% of kindergartners, it's 95% every single person in the society. I want to show you the CDC adult schedule. This is on their website. The adult schedule requires 2 more MMR vaccines for every single adult in Connecticut. It's not an accident. They know that MMR vaccine wears off. We give 2 vaccines when they're children. I've been at the CDC for meetings where they're now discussing a 3rd in college because mumps outbreaks are taking place in fully vaccinated communities. So I'd like to ask this question, since most of you were born before 1986, and so this applies to you. Those of you that are about to vote to force children to be vaccinated with the MMR vaccine, how many of you up there, if you raise your hand, have actually received your adult MMR vaccine? Thank you very much. So whether you like it or not, you're actually anti-vaxxers. And if you leave this office and you don't go and get an MMR vaccine, then I think you are moving into a space of being really almost hypocritical. You're forcing this process onto a religious belief that's only affecting 2 to 3% of your population right now, when, since all of you have proved that no adult is vaccinated for MMR, you're all capable of contracting the measles everywhere you go. And any child that visits you in your offices or comes in this building, you are putting them at risk. So your discussion, if you really want herd immunity, should not be about children. It should be a forced vaccination program for every single adult in Connecticut. Otherwise, you're insincere in the goal that you're trying to achieve. Because in restaurants, in buses, in cabs, and everywhere you go, adults like you are capable of contracting the measles. If I'm wrong, then ask the CDC why you need 2 more MMR vaccines. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bigtree. I'm going to check into whether I need to get my vaccine done or not.
I would like for you to do that.
My colleagues as well.
Thank you.
Sounds like a good thing. Maybe we do need more
You do.
vaccinations.
You do.
Are there any other? Oh, yes, Representative Young.
I do know that I actually recently did go to the doctor and get a checkup, and they checked out the titers for my vaccines from 50-something years ago, and they were all up to date, fine. So,
I would guess, I'm just asking a question, did you have measles as a child?
no, I did not.
So you got a vaccine for the MMR. Well, then you're one of the lucky ones. The truth is, though, while you're at it, then perhaps you want to consider a law for every child to be able to have their titers checked and to opt out of the process using science and not just a guess that they are no longer capable of achieving the same thing that you are.
Just to clarify, you're now recommending that we should mandate titer testing?
I think that titer testing is a great place to start. I think that if we're going to force vaccinations on people, especially kids, when you think about DTaP vaccines, we're giving 5 of them at a time now through the course of childhood, that children should be able to opt out. There's a lot of science that's necessary to take place. I also want to point out that if the adults are not vaccinated with the MMR right now, where is the giant return of polio we're being told we're supposed to be afraid of? Where is the deadly measles outbreak? We've been at about 60% vaccine uptake in this country since the vaccine program began. So this idea that we're at 95%, we've never achieved 95%. We've never been anywhere close because none of you are getting your adult vaccines. So this entire thing is really an ad campaign by the pharmaceutical industry. Let's get down to the science because that's what I've been investigating for the last 4 years. Let's talk about how to protect children. I love a question about whooping cough because I can bring you the actual science that is not actually protecting us against anything. In fact, it's a dangerous vaccine. Can you bear with me for a second? This is an article written by Boston University. We all hear about how dangerous whooping cough is for our infants. It's true. You don't want your infant to get whooping cough. This article, Boston University 2017, is called "The Resurgence of Whooping Cough May Owe to Vaccines' Inability to Prevent Infections." We're told that the science is immaculate by all these scientists that are stepping up in here, but that's why as a journalist I actually read the studies they point to and instead of just taking the word for it. Because by the way, taking word for experts is why we have Vioxx killed 60,000 to 100,000 people. We have an opioid epidemic caused by experts that told us it was non-addictive, non-habit forming, and safe. So experts have continuously come together in a collection of ideas and been wrong about it, so we need to look at vaccines. But here's the truth about the whooping cough vaccine. Resurgence of whooping cough.
I did ask you a question about tigers, so I'm not quite sure where.
Oh, then would someone else please ask me about the Thank you.
Representative Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir, for coming here today.
Yes.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding your argument. So are you saying that you think the best public health outcome, if that was really our true intention, would be to mandate the vaccination for everyone in the state? Are you suggesting that you support that?
I am saying that that is your goal and you think that's what gets you to safety, and 95% is what you're listening from the health department to achieve, that is what you have to do. But I would say
this. Would you
this.
personally support that?
I would not, because I realize that we've always been at 60% and I don't see any deadly outbreaks in this country. And so I think it's a complete overstep and totally unnecessary. But if you're trying to achieve your goal, then you should use proper science to achieve that goal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Representative Hennessy.
Yeah, tell us about whooping cough.
Okay. So this is an article by Boston University. And in this article, it says that the disease is back. So they did studies on baboons. And what they've discovered is that the vaccine does not stop transmission. In fact, the whooping cough vaccine allows you to shed. Now, let me make this clear. You're not shedding the vaccine. What they found is when they gave the baboons the vaccine, they developed titers. But then when they insulted or challenged them with the actual whooping cough virus, they got it again. And they had full colonization in their lungs. And therefore, when they put a healthy baboon in there, that baboon got it from them. And what they are now recognizing, and this is a known scientific fact, that the whooping cough vaccine does not stop transmission. The only thing it stops is your cough. It takes away the warning signal that you have whooping cough. So let me read this article for you. And this is why they're having a problem. This disease is bad because we didn't really understand how our immune defenses against whooping cough worked and did not understand how the vaccines needed to work to prevent it, said Christopher J. Gill, Associate Professor of Global Health and lead author of the article. Instead, listen to how your science is done. Instead, we layered assumptions upon assumptions and now find ourselves in the uncomfortable position of admitting that we've made some crucial errors. This is definitely not where we thought we'd be in 2017. We're seeing schools all over the nation with fully whooping cough vaccinated children getting the whooping cough because they're shedding it on each other. Now think about the commercials that say that grandma and grandpa should get a whooping cough vaccine if they want to visit your baby. We've seen it by GSK. Grandma and grandpa turned into the big bad wolf. I'm actually working on a lawsuit for false advertising. Because think about it. If grandma and grandpa do not get the vaccine, then they might have a cough at home. And they're going to call you and say, I probably shouldn't visit the baby today. We have a cough over here. Unfortunately, the only thing the vaccine did was take away the cough. The only way they would know that they have whooping cough. So now they're a carrier of whooping cough, and they're going to come and visit your baby and put that baby in grave danger. The vaccine is doing exactly the opposite of what it's supposed to do, is creating what we call asymptomatic carriers. But it doesn't stop there. Here's a study that came out in last year, 2019. This is by the Pediatric Infectious Disease Society. These are all peer-reviewed studies. I'm a journalist. I won't say anything I can't back up with science. Here's the 112-year odyssey of pertussis and pertussis vaccines, mistakes made and implications for the future. Here's the main point in it. Because of linked epitope suppression, all children who were primed by DTaP vaccines will be more susceptible to pertussis throughout their lifetimes, and there's no easy way to decrease this increased lifetime susceptibility. So not only are we not stopping transmission, we are ensuring that our children are going to catch whooping cough more often throughout their lifetimes. This is a vaccine that you are about to force onto people that have this science because I've provided it to them. Do they not have a right to opt out of a vaccine that's going to make their children sicker throughout their lifetime and make them dangerous to all of their friends, including that immune-suppressed child at school that doesn't know that every child surrounding them that's been vaccinated can be an asymptomatic carrier? Can someone ask me a question about the measles outbreak from California where I live? Anyone interested?
Go ahead.
Okay. So we keep hearing that you're going to stop the measles outbreaks by vaccinating. But someone should come up and actually present for you the numbers from one of the biggest outbreaks we saw, which was the Disneyland outbreak. And by the way, when I talk about community immunity, so far none of the outbreaks have started in a school. So you're going at the one place that these outbreaks, not even the one in New York, came from. So how, again, is your science going to get you there? But here's what we know if you just simply go to the California Department of Public Health. They put out all the stats on what they actually know about the measles outbreak. And what you'll find there is that 54% of the people that contracted measles were adults. In fact, that's true across the entire world in all the outbreaks. The story, anti-vaxxers, if that is really a growing problem, those children should be 2 to 3, 4 years old as long as we've been seeing this big anti-vaccine movement, right? That should be the body of measles, but it's not. More than half are adults across the world, which proves my point. The vaccine has worn off. Your problem is the adults if you see it as a problem. Furthermore, over 30% of the cases were fully vaccinated. And even more terrifying is 30% of the cases in the Disneyland outbreak. This is just from all those where we actually test the genomic sequencing. 30% of the cases were vaccine-strained measles. Vaccine-strained measles. So they either definitely got measles from the vaccine, or potentially they shed that measles onto somebody else. So if you have 30% of the numbers we're getting from the biggest outbreak we're all terrified of prior to New York, if we're getting that and 30% of them are actually vaccine strained, those numbers need to be looked at. If 50% of them are adults, then we should wonder what happened in the vaccine program. If we know for sure that over 30% of them were vaccinated, then how are we ever going to get to this mythological place of herd immunity? And by the way, where are the deaths? And since you're so close to New York, let me make this point about that measles outbreak. It's the only outbreak that we've ever called an outbreak where the people in it were charging into homes to get the measles. You see, coronavirus, people aren't charging into somebody's home with coronavirus, but the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community that drove that were not afraid of measles. The reason it got to the numbers it did was because they were being oppressed. They are being told they will not be allowed in public spaces. They will not be allowed in schools, and they don't want vaccines. So what did they do? They said, let's get the damn measles out of the way. Let's make sure our children have lifelong, perfect, brilliant immunity that won't need 5 MMR vaccines. They want the Ferrari of immunity, so they all went to each other's houses, started sucking lollipops. And by the way, it's much worse than the 700 you hear because I went and investigated. There were thousands and thousands of cases of measles in New York, the ultra-Orthodox community, because they wanted the measles. How do you call something an outbreak when the people are spreading it because they want it? This entire fear that's being promoted up here, again, is advertising for the pharmaceutical institution. And by the way, whether you pass this or not, they are going to have an adult vaccine program in the future because that's where their money is. And you are all really just setting the groundwork so that pharma can take a $50 billion a year industry and turn it into a multi-trillion-dollar industry overnight, when it's not about 2% of the unvaccinated kids. It's about 340 million people lined up for this vaccine, of adult vaccines, and 270 vaccines that have already been approved in the pipeline. This is the takeover of the human body by the pharmaceutical industry. That's not a conspiracy theory. Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to say exactly that same thing, but you took the words right out of me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Senator Anwar.
thank you so much for your testimony.
You're
so
welcome.
I want to clarify a couple of things. You
Sure.
said you're coming from California.
Yes.
Who paid for your travel?
Who paid for my travel? Many of the people in this room.
Any organization or any entity?
No organizations,
So they
private
collected
individuals.
funds together and
That's right.
and paid for that.
Yes.
Okay, and also with respect to your your movie that you made, the Vax.
Yes.
Did anybody counter the information on the African American Garcia that you're saying, because that data was not proven by other means?
That's not true. You can't find a single study that's run that data and proved it was. In fact, they tried. There's been several groups that took that data, and it's now being referred to as like a nuclear bomb. They cannot run the data and come out with any other conclusion that there was an increased risk of autism in the group that received the vaccine on the CDC schedule. Now, you have references by experts saying that it's not true, but you can't show me a study because they can't do a study that proves anything other than what Dr. Williamson Thompson told us, the CDC whistleblower. And by the way, just like the tobacco industry, when the tobacco industry wanted to attack Jeffrey Wigand, Dr. William Thompson is still working at the CDC. His job is protected because he has a whistleblower status. And when we retire, maybe the only time we actually find out what the truth is with
that data was not corroborated by any of the other studies. So I think your data, I mean, that study that you're talking about was not proven. It was just one piece that was taken, and it was taken out of context. That's
sure. So that's the statement by the CDC. That's the official statement. You're correct. That's the statement by the CDC. The problem is that Dr. William Thompson is saying that the place where he works, the CDC, is committing scientific fraud. And so if we're going to go to the very culprits of the crime, if there is a crime, and say, do you agree with what Dr. William Thompson says, what do you think they're going to say? See, we've never gotten congressional hearings, which is really the only way to get to the truth. I would like to see Dr. Colleen Boyle. I would like to see the other 5 scientists involved in what Dr. William Thompson has called a fraudulent study. That's the only way we get to a bottom. We have to get into a courtroom outside of the actual industry and institution that's being blamed. And you are taking the CDC's word for it. I understand.
No, I've looked at that data as well, the one that's available. Yeah.
And what did you find?
Well, the CDC data is what I'm talking about. You actually took part of that separate data that you're talking about.
I took the 10,000 documents provided by Dr. William Thompson, who's the lead epidemiologist on the study. I think that's pretty credible evidence. Have you read all 10,000 documents?
There are no 10,000 documents. There's data on the patients that you're looking at. If you're calling the patients as the 10,000 documents, it's a different story.
Okay, look, I don't know if you're a scientist or a doctor, and I don't mean any disrespect.
Well,
you know, all I'm saying.
Hear me out. You're in business for yourself. You have a responsibility as well to look at things. But I also want to confirm what you said. You have said that you have read every single study that there is.
My team has, yes. In fact, I could provide you with the.
But confirm. I want to confirm every single study that has ever been written in.
Everyone. Well, let me clarify. Everyone, so we're in a debate with Health and Human Services. My nonprofit has the most thorough debate that's ever been. We sent a 37-page document listing all the scientific issues that we had with their process and with vaccines. And we asked them for we asked them for every credible study that they refer to when they say that vaccines are safe, and they provided us with those. And then we read through every one of those, and we have returned with an 88-page document about why those studies actually come up short. And for instance, one of the things we hear, like this is the problem with the science. I'm just telling you, as a journalist, I read medical journals. That's what I do on the daytime talks to the doctors. So when you look at autism, and we hear that studies have proved that vaccines don't cause autism.
You will not stop. I cannot have a conversation.
I would argue.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Did I interrupt you?
Let's just see if we can limit the responses directly to the questions being asked, so we can move on to other people eventually.
All right, but you have a panel of doctors for 2 hours, and then many doctors, and so very few people have actually investigated this from our side are getting to really explain the science. What would be really great, honestly, is if we could have debates. If you could actually put your top scientists here, and we could bring some of ours here, and we could actually go back and forth so you could hear the scientists speak to each other. But please, what's the next question?
We have our process, and we have had forums in the past, and we'll continue to have discussions. But thank you for your recommendation.
Thank you.
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Other comments or questions?
Anyone want to know about autism and vaccines?
I think that you're shopping new ideas.
I am shopping because I think you deserve the truth.
Well, I appreciate that you think that you're offering it. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you all for your time.